Question number 1. Find the diagonal of the TV screen correct to the nearest centimeter. So we're given here a TV screen with dimensions 79 centimeters and 51 centimeters. Okay, and the question here is to find my diagonal. Okay, so first thing, let's just draw my diagonal in. Okay, so say that's my diagonal, and we'll just call that, say, D. Okay, so that's my diagonal, and in a TV screen, this is most likely going to be right angle here, correct? So what are we given here? We have a right angle triangle. Okay, so we're going to apply my Pythagoras theorem. So my hypotenuse here is D. So let's write out my Pythagoras theorem. It's going to look like this. Okay, now, and my question is, I want to find D by itself. So let's just calculate down, put that into a calculator, and we will get 8,841. So D squared equals that, and D will be the square root of that. Okay, now I'll just go back to the question. It says, correct to the nearest centimeter. So I want you to put that in your calculator again, and you should get something like this. 94.062, so on, so on, so on. Correct to the nearest centimeter, it'll be approximately just 94 centimeters. Okay, so that's how we answer this question. So when we apply Pythagoras theorem to real applications, so in this case like TV screens, okay, it's very important to note where my right angle is, okay, and where my diagonal is, or where the hypotenuse is, okay? So we need to understand how to draw these points in so that we can apply my Pythagoras theorem, okay? Now, question number 2. A ship sails 50 kilometers south and then 40 kilometers east. How far is it from its starting point correct to the nearest kilometer? Okay, so let's try and draw this diagram out, okay? So it goes down and then east, and we want to know how far it is from the original starting point. Okay, so we're given this sort of diagram here. Okay, now when you go south and when you go east, okay, it's going to intersect at a right angle there. Okay, so again, we have a right angle triangle in which we can use my Pythagoras theorem. So let's write out my Pythagoras theorem. Okay, so D squared equals 50 squared plus 40 squared. Okay, now let's calculate down. Okay, so just plot into calculator. You should get 4,100. So D squared equals that. D equals the square root of that. Okay, so very similar to the last question. In this case, this is correct to the nearest kilometer. So again, I want you to put this into your calculator, and you should get something like this: 64.03, so on, so on, so on. To the nearest kilometer, it should be approximately 64 kilometers to the nearest kilometer. Okay, so this is how we answer the question. And it's very important that we read the question to see what they want to know. Okay, question number 3. Find the length of the diagonal and give the answer as a surd. Okay, so we're given some sort of a square here, and we want to know what my diagonal is. Okay, now it's given that that side is 5. Now in a square, all the other sides should be the same. Okay, so this is 5, and that's 5, and that's 5 as well. Okay, now if we just look at here, we have a right angle triangle, or even the lower one is also a right angle triangle. Okay, so from there we can use my Pythagoras theorem. So let's write it out. D squared equals 5 squared plus 5 squared. Okay, so where did the other 5 squared come from? If this is 5, then this is also 5. Okay, so those are my two shorter sides, and D is my hypotenuse. So let's just calculate down. We should get D squared equals 50. Then D will be the square root of 50. Okay, now the question says give the answer as a surd, so this is pretty much what we want. Okay, so we don't want to calculate it any further. So the diagonal is root 50 meters. Okay, so that's how we answer the question. Make sure you read the question, because in those 3 questions we had, each one wanted different things, right? So this one wants a surd, the other one wants the nearest kilometer, and so on. So it's very important to read the question in this sort of case.